Welcome in, everybody, to Best of the West. I am your host, Jake Thomas, and as always, we're joined by our great co-host and Stacey Blackwood. Stacey, how you doing tonight, man?
Man, I'm doing great, brother. How about you?
Man, I'm doing great. As you see up top, we're going to talk a little bit about the Auburn situation again. This is like 2.0 because we talked about it last week. Talk about SEC Who's. Speaking of Auburn, they're in a top one. I think that game is fixing to go to overtime now with Arkansas, and we're going to give our Super Bowl predictions. So we got a fun show tonight for you guys. Stacey, before we get started, you have a busy day today at work.
Oh yeah, man. Just the usual, keeping us busy.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. Excuse me. Yeah, that's the same way with me. I've keep as long as you got something going on, makes the day go by. So that's what I'm. That always helps.
That's right. That's right.
And as always, we got our chat open tonight. So jump in the comments, and we'll if you got something you want to talk about, we'll talk about it. We ain't gonna stay long, about 30 minutes. This is what the show normally does. If it goes a little bit longer, maybe 45, but most of the time it's about 30 minutes long. But jumping right into it, Stacey, Bryan Harsin, I think it come out yesterday and over the weekend that it's kind of like a stalemate, as they call it right now. The board of trustees kind of want him to resign, but Harson's like, I'm not resigning. I'm the football coach at Auburn. So, you know, and they're still investigating everything come out that last week. But as of right now, that is still just hearsay. So, how do you think it's going to play out, and how do you think it's been handled so far?
Oh well,
What's
it's
up,
been
LW?
it's been handled atrociously by Auburn, and the
Yeah,
biggest loser in all this is not Bryan Harsin. It's Auburn University as a whole. It's the football program. I don't care what their basketball program is doing right now. Down here, football leads the way, and
right.
their football program is in complete shambles. And the biggest loser in all this is just is Auburn University, and it's a bad look. I don't see how, no matter what the administration finds, which to me it looks like they're not finding anything, and it's why
Mm-mm.
they're at a stalemate. And that's obviously why Bryan Harsin is not going to resign, because then he could not
Yeah.
get his buyout money.
Hmm.
So it looks like Auburn has nothing to back up some of these claims or whatever is going on, and so they're just kind of reeling. They're just trying to find any kind of shred of evidence they can to fire him with cause, so they don't have to pay him his buyout. And I don't blame Bryan Harsin for sticking it out and saying, no, I'm gonna be the head coach at Auburn until you fire me with cause, because like I said, I think it's what $18 million buyout is what
Yeah.
he's got. So what a it's just it's maddening what is going on in Auburn. It's embarrassing, honestly.
It is, and the LW said, "Yeah, Auburn is turning over every rock they can find. They are, but they can't find anything right now." It come out that Derek Mason went to Oklahoma and took like a $400,000 pay cut or something like
It
that.
went to Oklahoma State, yes.
Oklahoma State. So I mean, for a guy to leave that situation and take a pay cut, something is not right down there. And it's just, players, we talked about that last week, players who left had come out and said things. And it all kind of started with Bo Nix transferring out. So it just kind of, tumbled on further down since then. But it's a bad look, like you said, right now
Well, and
for the
and
university.
there's no recovering from this, at least not immediately, Jake. I don't care what happens with Bryan Harsin, whether he's retained or not, and I don't see how
Mhm.
they can retain him at this point.
Right.
But it's obviously going to affect recruiting. I mean, you're looking at a staff that is in shambles. Coaches have left and right. Another one is Zach Etheridge is apparently leaving as well. So
Hmm.
it's just it is just so chaotic down there. There's no leadership, obviously, and I'm not even talking about Bryan Harsin. It looks like Bryan Harsin has just been targeted by the
Yeah.
administration to be let go. And I'm just looking on the outside, and that's what it seems like to me. And whatever is going on, the Auburn administration has made it 10,000 times worse, and it's just been handled completely unprofessionally, in my opinion. And if I was a head coach somewhere else, and Bryan Harsin is let go, why in the heck would you go and coach at Auburn right now with all that's going on?
I mean, it'd be hard. You had to get like Auburn wants to hire an A list type coach, an A name, high profile coach. But at this point, they're looking at a C, name coach if they're lucky to get that. I mean, they may have to go down the high school ranks to get somebody, and that is not good for a university that wants to try to live up to the likeness of Bama, and try to be like Bama. And
Right.
right now, it is not a good look at all for them.
Well, see,
I'm gonna ask you. Oh,
well,
go
let
ahead.
me just say something real quick. See,
No, you good.
Auburn didn't have a Gus Malzahn problem, and
Right.
they don't have a Bryan Harsin problem. They have an Auburn problem.
Yeah.
And we've talked
100%.
about that before on our shows before, and how what their expectation is for their football program. And look, I'm all about people trying to be better, but when you're trying to become better, you also have to be realistic in those expectations as well.
Yes.
And they're in a time where their in-state rival has the greatest coach of all time, and they're trying to keep up with that.
Yeah.
And you're not. I mean, what makes them think they're going to keep up with that? Gus Malzahn was doing a pretty solid job coaching against Nick Saban, if we're being honest.
Mm-hmm.
So they
Yeah.
didn't have a Gus Malzahn problem. They don't have a Bryan Harsin problem right now. They have an administration problem,
Yes.
a leadership within the athletic department, within the boosters, with the people that have the money and share the wealth down there in Auburn. It's ridiculous, man. They have issues, and I would be so just infuriated if I was an Auburn fan right now. And, if you're on Twitter, you can see all these Twitter spaces that have been going on. And I mean, it seems like for days and days, and, they're all just about fed up as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And going back to the point you made, on one of our shows that we talked on Tide Talk, I brought up how the Cassie said they're trying to keep with the Joneses. I mean, yeah, they're trying to keep up to Alabama standard. They can't, but I brought up the fact that historically Auburn is an 8 to 9 win program, but and that they're trying to live up to, like you said, the Alabama and live in Alabama's shadow, but that's not who they are historically. Like we mentioned, and like you mentioned, Gus Malzahn had 3 wins against Saban.
Yeah,
and he was winning. He was in that 8 to 9 win season, and they would have a good season once every 10 years. It seemed like.
no,
And they
it was more often than not that, Jake.
Yeah.
His first year in 2013, they win the SEC
Yeah.
and they play for a national championship.
Yeah.
Then just 3-4 years later in 2017, I believe it was,
Mm-hmm.
they play for another SEC championship. They get beat by Georgia.
Yeah.
But I mean, what else did you want?
Right.
And I'm not saying Gus was the perfect coach for Auburn. I'm just saying that maybe he was getting about what you can get out of Auburn at this point in time when the greatest coach of all time is sitting across the state.
Right. Exactly. That's all we're saying.
That's all we're. I'm not saying that one day when Saban's retired that they can't rise to a higher level, but you keep firing coaches, you keep changing all this stuff. You're just pissing in the winds. All you're doing.
Absolutely. And LW makes a good point. I mean, look at what's happening at Nebraska.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I bet they regret that to this day.
Yeah. Bo Pelini never lost less than 9 games.
Never won more than he was always around 9 wins. He was 9-4 every year.
Yeah. And they fired him. That's crazy. You got an update on the score back there for us?
Yeah, it's 70-69 Auburn with a minute 52 left in overtime.
I'm going to keep up on that. I was going to ask you real quick before we move on to SEC hoops. What potentially is more damning to a program? What Lane Kiffin did at Tennessee, or what Bryan all this stuff going on Bryan Harsin at Auburn? What could have more of an impact? Because I mean, honestly, Tennessee is still rebuilding as well.
Yeah, but that happened long before Lane Kiffin, Jake.
That's true.
They were in shambles when Phil Fulmer was still the head coach towards the end of his career. It was starting to fade then, and it was really after Lane Kiffin. I mean, he was just there 1 year. There's only so much damage he can do there, and none of this is. I mean, unless something comes out with Bryan Harsin that's just ridiculous. and
Mhm.
and turns out to be true. None of this is Bryan Harsin's fault.
No.
It's the administration at Auburn and the
Mhm.
boosters, and that's just the truth of it. So
Yeah.
what's happening at Auburn is more damning, Jake, because if they don't take care of this quickly and come to a resolution quickly and find the right person quickly, if they do in fact move on from Bryan Harsin, this could be a 10-year lull that Auburn gets put into, in a funk they get put into, all because they were trying to dig up dirt on Bryan Harsin. I mean,
Yeah.
the dude's been there just a little over 12 months, and uh, yeah, he's been treated unfairly.
Yeah. It's insane on what's going
And
on.
and I say he's been treated unfairly because they haven't found nothing yet.
Right.
I mean, I'm not gonna talk about somebody's character or anything like that when there's no proof that. I mean, from everything we know, Bryan Harsin's a fine man, a good football coach, and it's just Auburn's looking bad. And like LW says,
Mhm.
all the other SEC West teams are trending up. Alabama's not going anywhere. Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin are solid. Arkansas and Sam Pittman are solid.
Mhm.
Mississippi State is doing marginally better each season under Michael Leach.
Mhm.
Texas A&M had the best recruiting class of all time under Jimbo Fisher, but so it's not looking good for Auburn. They are backing themselves into a corner. They have boxed themselves into this situation, and I don't see how they can get out of it without having some damages.
Honestly, Auburn next year is looking at a 7th place
Oh,
finish
that
in the
I don't
West.
see how they're not last in the SEC next
I
year,
know. That's
unless
how.
something crazy happens.
Right. And I mean, their quarterback who had all the flair and did all the amazing stuff for them is not there no more in Bo Nix.
Yep.
So
All right. Score update with
yeah,
103 left to go in overtime. Arkansas is up 73-70, and Kessler may have fouled out.
yeah. Kessler was hanging around 4 fouls start overtime, I believe.
Yeah.
So we'll jump right into SEC hoops now. That right there seems like it's going a good game. Arkansas, speaking of, they have kind of been on a roll here lately.
Yeah.
We talked. We talked about how some teams start to find their way, you know, in the SEC play, and Arkansas looks like they found their way here lately.
Yeah, I would say if I had to do a power rankings right now, and the truth is, Auburn may come back and win this game, but as far as how well teams are playing right now, I would probably say Kentucky right now, as far as at this moment, is playing the best basketball in the SEC. Then it's Auburn, and those two are neck and neck. You're splitting hairs,
Right.
and then I would say it's Arkansas. LSU has faded. Alabama has had their struggles. LSU, like I said, LSU is fading. Texas A&M, they're not talented enough to make deep runs. Then you look at teams like Tennessee, they're probably about fourth in the league right now. So it's, to me, it would be Auburn and Kentucky splitting hairs for best team in the SEC at this moment. And then you look at teams like Arkansas and Tennessee, and then you look at teams like Alabama and LSU who are talented but have not really lived up to the expectations that we thought they would be.
Yeah, speaking of Alabama, they had a horrendous shooting night against Kentucky Saturday, and I mean, if we just had a few more of those shots go down, they only lost by 11. I mean, you know, even though we
Well,
lost by 11, it seemed closer if they could have made some shots. They had a
look,
chance.
it was an historically bad shooting
Yeah.
night. Like like not just this team's a bad shooting team. It's just that nothing would drop for that team.
No.
They were. I looked at the stats. They were 2 of 23 on uncontested 3-point attempts. 2 of 23 on uncontested.
Wow.
Uh, Alabama's not that bad of a shooting team. Just a bad night for the
Yeah.
team shooting. That's all it was. And if Alabama just shoots their percentage from 3-point line in that game against Kentucky, they have 21 more points in that contest against the Wildcats, and that's enough to give them a double-digit win over Kentucky.
Yeah.
So it was a historically bad shooting night for Alabama. I don't think it's anything you can just you can't change who you are as a team because of
Mhm.
one bad shooting night. I know the 3-point shooting has not been great this year for Alabama, but it's still their bread and butter, Jake. It's how they run their offense. It's who they are. That's how Nate Oates has built this program. You can't just change that up mid-season. So you got to roll with what you got. maybe you just take better shots. Maybe you don't let Rojas take as many outside shots and get Shaq a little more involved early on in the contest. I think he just had 4 shot attempts in the first half against
Right.
Kentucky. So we got to get him going more into the game, because when Shaq plays well, Jake, we're really tough to beat. So that's what it's about for Alabama. It's just continue, Jake. They're not going to have that bad of a shooting night every night. They play at Ole Miss tomorrow night, which is a team that's kind of had an up and down year as well, Jake. They're not a great
Mhm.
team, but they're a good team. So
Mhm.
that should be an interesting matchup there when Alabama travels to Oxford to play the Rebels. But as far as Alabama goes, I don't think it's time to write them off as a team that's not capable of doing some good things this year. There's still some talent on that roster. Shackelford's a good player.
Yeah.
Ellis is a good player. Bediako is coming into his own, had the best game of his career against Kentucky.
Mhm.
JQ, once he starts finding his shot, I mean, he shot nearly 45% from three last year, and he's at 25% this year. He's not a 25% three-point shooter. He's
No.
around a 35 to 40% three-point shooter. So once he finds his stroke, this team will be a different team, and they're going to be tough to beat. So, uh, yeah, John DeLone says, duh. Okay, Carson, we'll hire a cheerleader from the school you just came from, working on our athletic department. I see no problems here. Yeah, yeah, and like I said, we talked about this a little bit last week or Friday night whenever we had our podcast, that we didn't want to dive into that part of it because nothing has been, you know, concrete as far as that situation goes, but it looks a little shady.
Yeah, it does. Going back, excuse me, going back to the hoops and Alabama's. You did mention that we do need to get Shackelford going more because I believe in the three games that we won in the final against the Final Four teams, Gonzaga, Baylor, and Houston. I think he was leading the points in that contest for us. So in all
Yeah.
three of those games. So when he's on and doing his thing, he leads the team and we do great things. And of course JQ when he gets going, it's a different team. So we just got to get. I feel like we got to get both of them guys going. And like you said, JQ is going to find his shot. And I believe
Well,
it's CBS. Go ahead.
and Keon Ellis as well, Jake.
Right.
He has not shot the ball well offensively the last 3 or 4 games, and uh, once he starts finding his shot too, Jake, this is a completely different Alabama team, and so uh, to me, I don't think you can give up on them yet. They still got a lot
Hmm.
of talent. Nate Oates is still a good coach, so I
Yeah.
wouldn't give up on those guys just yet.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I believe it was a CBS Sports analyst. There was, I think I read that article today. One of them had come out. The article was teams not in the top 25 that can make a Final Four run, and one of them had Alabama. And I agree with him because this team has a talent to make a Final Four run. But if they have not peaked yet, so and they haven't gelled yet. So if they gel, we got a couple easy, 3 games. We got Arkansas coming up. That's going to be a tough one. But Ole Miss without Ruffin, I think we
Yeah,
have
that'll
a
be a
good
little
chance there.
that'll be a tough matchup for them without Ruffin. So
Right.
Alabama should win that game tomorrow night. They really need to win that game tomorrow night against
Yes.
Ole Miss. So, and then like you said, then they'll get Arkansas on Saturday at home.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's a winnable game. Arkansas is tough, but that's a winnable game. We'll
Hmm.
see what Arkansas is like after the emotions of this game with Auburn, which I think Arkansas is up by 3 with about 28 seconds left to go in the overtime. So yeah, but as far as SEC hoops go, Jake, it's been a fun
Hmm.
season. The
It
SEC is
has.
loaded. I think that's important for fans to remember, like of teams of like Alabama, Ole Miss, Florida, Texas A&M, South Carolina, teams that are right there, between the fourth and I don't know 12th place in the league. Uh, this league is loaded with talent and loaded with great coaches and
Yeah.
a lot of good teams. So if you're hovering around 500 right now, you shouldn't feel too bad. You're playing a tough schedule against teams that are really good. So just hang in there and keep your heads up because your team could go on a run at any time. And in this conference, that would be huge. And there's still a lot of seeding to be played for when it comes to the SEC tournament. So there's a lot of league play left, and a lot can change over the next couple weeks.
Absolutely. And I was going to say real quick, going to Alabama, if they win the next 3, they are 7-6 in the conference going to Rupp Arena to play Kentucky. So that would be a big confidence boost. If they can get above 500 in SEC play going up there, it's going to be a challenge.
Yeah.
But this team can do it if the cards play out right, and I believe they can do it. But overall, the SEC, like you said, is pretty doggone stout. There's
Yeah.
been a couple. There's really no surprises. Auburn's probably going to be a number one seed. Kentucky probably fighting for at least a two seed.
They should be
Yeah,
a
one
one
or
seed
two.
right
Yeah,
now.
absolutely. So, we'll have two guys, two teams up there. Alabama is still around a 6 seed. Arkansas will probably be a 5-4 for the 5th seed, depending. So, I mean, I expect there's probably still going to be about 7 teams in the tournament. When
Right.
it's all said and done. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
And,
big
and,
figure
and
games
you and
for
you
that.
never know who makes a run in the SEC tournament. There's always a
Right.
team just about every year who makes a run come conference tournament play and kind of works herself into a bid. So that's something to watch out for too as well. So it's a lot of league play left, so a lot can change. And uh, like LW said, this next 3 game stretch for Alabama specifically is critical, because if they get them 3 wins, like you said, Jake, head up to Lexington with an above 500 record in conference play. That's big, because after you finish that game, even if you lose, you're still sitting at 500 with a chance to
Right.
win out and have a really solid 11-7 conference record. And with that kind of record, you might have one of the top 4 seeds come SEC tournament play. So that would be big
Absolutely.
when it goes to the double buys. So, a lot to play for still, and a lot can change. So the SEC hoop season is just getting rolling.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And like you said, it's been fun all season. Um, we're going to jump to keep us updated on that score.
Right now, there's a timeout with 18 seconds left. Arkansas is up 78-76,
Nice. Who's going to get the
and
ball?
I think Arkansas is fixing to get the ball after the
Okay.
timeout.
All right. Before we jump to our Super Bowl predictions, I want to ask you a question.
Okay,
I I don't know if you got to watch any of it, but the Pro Bowl, did you get to watch any of it
I
last
did
last
not.
weekend? Okay. Well, I didn't get to watch any of it either, but from what I read, it was pretty much a two-hand touch type
Yeah,
deal, and it's
yeah.
been like that for the last several years. I mean, there's hardly anybody really caring on the field, and there's hardly any defense being played. And I understand that's a big moment for them. They need to do something to get that more involved. The MLB has the All-Star game, which if you win the All-Star game, then you get home field advantage through in the World Series, so that's huge. But I saw something that I was going to ask you about the other day, and I was like, man, I would actually love that. But I saw that somebody had said, how about we take the 2 worst teams in the league on Pro Bowl weekend, let them play, and whoever loses that game gets the number 1 seed. I think that'd be more fun than watching the Pro
Well,
Bowl
to
any
me,
day.
it's to be whoever wins gets the number 1 seed,
Well,
because you
yeah,
gotta you
yeah,
need to
number 2.
have a motive for the game. I mean,
Yeah,
it'd be just like the Pro Bowl if both teams didn't care if they won or not. So
yeah. So yeah, number 1 seed or whoever wins will get the number 1 pick in the draft. I think that would be a more fun game to watch than the Pro Bowl has last several years.
yeah, they're not going to do that because they don't want to
No,
put the players in another physical type situation. But to
right.
me, what they need to do is just do away with the Pro Bowl game and just amp up the skills challenge,
That was fun.
and do something a little more fun like that. Like
Yeah,
what makes the NBA weekend so much fun is not the All-Star game. It's the
right.
dunk contest. It's a 3-point shootout. It's the skills
Mhm.
competition. All that is what makes the NBA All-Star weekend so much fun. So maybe if the NFL could come up with something to improve the skills challenge or anything like that, have some of the fastest guys race in a 40-yard dash, or do something to draw some interest besides a two-hand touch football game, or just take off the pads and play flag football.
Right, exactly. Because
I,
that's what
I
they're playing anyway.
yeah, that I do agree though. Something needs to be changed about it, because it's hard to watch.
It is, and that you got an update? Or they still
I don't know who's. I think Arkansas may be going to the free throw line with 12 seconds left, and they're up 3. So it looks like
Mm,
Arkansas, barring some miracle, is going to upset number 1 Auburn.
nice.
So league play is going crazy.
Yeah, exactly. LW said both sides played prevent defenses. There was INTs all over the place. There was a joke. I know if they tried to run the ball, somebody running out the middle, and as soon as they got hit, there was a whistle, or got touched. So John said, I'd rather see silly competitions by position than
Yep.
the current state of the Pro Bowl, like lineman tug of war, where the loser falls in the pit of mud. Hey, that'd be fun as well. Justin Jefferson was the only wide receiver who wasn't jogging most of his routes. Some of them actually go out there and actually try. But it's just getting stale. I mean, I don't think they ever come out with the numbers on how many people watch this. I don't think anybody did. So
Arkansas won, and they stormed in the court. That's something I've never understood, but we can talk about that another day.
you're right. Going to the Super Bowl. Real quick before another thing before we do predictions. Any excitement of the halftime show?
No.
Yeah, me either. I couldn't care
But
less.
I'll say this: even if the artist was somebody that I like to watch,
Hmm.
I'm not into that because I'm there for the game. Like
Right.
I'm not thinking about music during the Super Bowl.
Hmm. Yep.
I'm thinking about a football game.
Right.
So like that's just not my. I love music. I listen to music all the time,
Right.
but like when I want to listen to music, I'll listen to music. But when I want to watch football, I'm going to watch football. So
Yep.
that part doesn't interest me at all. So no, but like I said, it has nothing to do with the artist. It has everything to do with the fact that I'm there to watch football and not music. So that's
Right.
really all it is.
Yep. Prediction time. The Rams versus the Bengals. Last week we saw, or 2 weeks ago, we saw the Bengals upset the mighty Kansas City Chiefs, and thankfully we don't have to deal with Jackson Mahomes in the Super Bowl. Thank God.
Yeah.
So thank you, Bengals. But honestly, I really like the Bengals, but I think the Rams going to win it. I mean, Aaron Donald is a stud on the inside on that defensive front. They got a really good defense. I think his name's Cooper Kupp is an outstanding wide receiver. Matt Stafford's playing lights out, and I just think it may be close at halftime, but I think in the fourth quarter, I think the Rams may pull away. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I think the Rams are the better overall team. So I mean, I'm going to have to pick them. But it seems like the Bengals kind of have the mojo right now in the playoffs
Hmm.
with Joe Burrow and that offense with Jamar Chase and Joe Mixon. But I just think the Rams are too tough. Um, like you mentioned Aaron Donald, uh, and that defense. They got Von Miller, Jalen Ramsey. I'm not sure how the Cincinnati front can block uh, Los Angeles enough to protect Joe Burrow to give him the time. The Titans sacked Burrow like what 8 or 9 times.
Hmm.
In the what I guess that was the divisional round of the
Yeah.
playoffs, and so I'm not sure how the Bengals can protect Burrow enough for him to make enough plays to beat the Rams. So I'm going to go with the Rams in this one, which I'll be happy for Matt Stafford because, he spent all those years in Detroit, man,
Mm.
just suffering with an abysmal franchise. And now he's got a chance to play with some good football players and a good coach, and he's in the Super Bowl. So hopefully he can get that win. That's who I'll be rooting for is the Rams. But like I said, this game's a little tricky because I think the Rams are the most talented team with the better overall team. But it does feel like a little bit like this could be the Bengals' year because
Yeah.
all the crazy stuff has kind of went their way a little bit, and Patrick Mahomes kind of choked there in the second half of that game.
Yeah.
The Titans choked in their game, so and I'm not trying to take anything away from Cincinnati, but I'm just saying that they had a lot of help here in the playoffs, and when you get a lot of help, that means you got a lot of luck going on with you right now,
Hmm.
and that's something you don't want to bet against. But I think the Rams are just a little too tough.
Yeah, and I don't think the the Chiefs or the Titans have a defensive guy like Aaron Donald. So I mean, That
No. Well, and
that
there's only
dude,
one Aaron Donald.
yeah, right, and that dude is pretty much unstoppable inside. So
And Von Miller, I think, has the best pass rusher rating
yeah,
so far in the playoffs. So you got
yeah,
that guy on the interior and Aaron Donald, then you got
mhm,
Von Miller on the edge, and so it's crazy. A pair of SEC quarterbacks though matching up for the Super Bowl with Joe Burrow, of course, from LSU, and Matt Stafford from Georgia. So a
yeah,
little SEC
absolutely,
tie in there, and of course, there's
yeah.
plenty of SEC players all across the board there for both teams. So it's going to be a fun matchup, and I'm looking forward to it. So, but yeah, I'm going to go with the Rams, and just to kind of give a score prediction, I'll say something around 34 to 24. Uh,
Mhm.
Los Angeles. I almost said St. Louis.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be 31-24. I think the Rams score a late touchdown to seal the deal. But I will say the young nucleus that Cincinnati has, especially on the offensive side of the ball, if they keep them together, they're going to be back. I mean, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. I mean, they got a lot of young talent, so they'll probably be back in a few years, if not next year. So you know, but I tend to agree with you though. I mean, all their luck is or all the luck's going on their side right now. So anything can happen in the Super Bowl, but it just takes
Y-
one play.
well, and you know what's crazy? Something else to point out. Both these teams' coaches have coaches that are under 40 years old.
You're right. Yeah,
That's nuts, man.
it is. It's crazy. So, catching up on the chat real quick. Joe Burrow just knows how to win, but the Rams have an all-star team, kind of. Yeah, Arkansas won, correct. Yes, Cassidy. Arkansas did beat Auburn. LW says, I guess I want the Bengals. Georgia fans want the Rams to win. If Burrow gets three competent O linemen, they're going to be hard to stop. I agree, John. I
Yeah,
think that is their weakness.
their offensive line is weak.
Hmm.
And if they had a couple spots there filled up with a little bit better players,
Yeah.
that offense would be unstoppable. We know how good Joe Burrow is. We know how good Jamar Chase is. Joe Mixon's, one of the more explosive and multi-dimensional backs in the
Hmm.
NFL. So CJ Azuma, the tight end, is a really solid tight end, kind of hybrid player. So they got playmakers all over the field. They just need to protect Joe Burrow a little better.
Yeah, exactly. So that might be something they need to do in the draft or in free agency this year. But
Yeah.
Stacey, if you got anything else you
No,
want to add?
man. No, nothing else to add. Just a lot of crazy stuff going on right now, mostly down in Auburn. But
Right,
there's some
exactly.
good SEC hoops going on this week. Uh, lot Super Bowls going on this weekend. So there's lots happening over the next few days. But
Hmm.
it's always a lot of fun to jump in here and talk a little, SEC hoops, some Auburn, and even a touch of the NFL. So good to be here, and glad everybody was in the chat as well. That's always fun when people are there in the chat.
Absolutely. And as always, of course, this is Best of the West. We are a part of the Y'all's Conference Network. You'll see my ugly mug again tomorrow night on SEC After Dark. And probably one day later on the week, either Thursday or Friday night, me and Stacey will probably do a podcast on our show, Tie Talk podcast. We'll let you know when we do that. But again, this is Best of the West. As I'm your host, Jake Thomas with Stacey Blackwood. Thank you all for joining, and appreciate all the comments in the chat. And we'll see y'all again next week. Roll Tide.
Real Tide, y'all. Y'all take care.